It was officially a tyre test. Pirelli needed wet weather data. Scuderia Ferrari provided the track and the driver, nothing unusual. Except the driver, Lewis Hamilton completed 297 laps across 2 days, 884 kilometres, 3 full race distances. In artificially flooded conditions at Fiorano circuit, a private track the rest of Formula One was not watching, and while Hamilton was doing that, Fred Vasseur was physically present in the garage, not on a call, not receiving updates remotely. In the garage, Charles Leclerc was not in the car. He was in the simulator, in technical meetings, working on something else entirely. 1 driver, 1 car, 3 race distances, 2 days. The question is not what Pirelli needed from this test, the question is what Ferrari needed, and those are not the same thing. Subscribe to F1 Perspective. Let's break down what actually happened at Fiorano. Day 1 at Fiorano circuit. Lewis Hamilton completes 142 laps, 423 kilometers. His fastest lap, 1 minute 01.031 seconds. The morning is dedicated to full wet tyre configurations, multiple compounds, various setups. The afternoon shifts to intermediates, different crossover windows, different behavior under different conditions. Pirelli logs everything. Ferrari logs everything. Day 2, Hamilton returns. Pirelli specifically requested the same driver for both sessions. Consistency of reference, they said. The same hands, the same inputs, the same baseline, so the tyre data can be compared without the variable of a driver change. Hamilton completed 155 laps on the second day, 461 kilometers. His fastest lap improves, 1 minute 00.740 seconds. The track is artificially soaked by Fiorano's built-in irrigation system to 22 degrees ambient temperature. Consistent wet conditions, controlled, stable, reproducible. Add it together, 297 laps, 884 kilometers. That is the equivalent of driving from Paris to Berlin. That is 3 complete Formula One race distances. That is more laps than any driver at any circuit during the entire 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend. For context, a typical Pirelli tyre test produces 100 to 150 laps per day. Hamilton averaged 148. Nobody runs 3 race distances in 2 days for a tyre supplier unless the session is producing something more than tyre data. Pirelli tyre tests operate under strict restrictions. Teams cannot run new aerodynamic components. They cannot conduct performance evaluations. They cannot test upgrades. What they can do is run the car's engine in real conditions, different maps, different deployment strategies, different harvesting sequences, and collect data on how the power unit behaves over a sustained distance. That restriction is the key to understanding what Scuderia Ferrari were doing at Fiorano circuit. Every lap Lewis Hamilton completed was a lap of real-world engine data. The SF26's energy management software responds differently on a wet, low-grip surface than it does in dry conditions. The harvesting algorithm, the code that decides when to recover electrical energy and at what rate, behaves differently when the car is sliding, when brake inputs change, when the driver is managing grip rather than chasing lap time. 884 kilometers of that data is worth more than any simulator session. And Ferrari are bringing a completely revised energy management software package to Miami. New algorithms, new harvesting strategies, new deployment profiles. That software needs validation against real conditions before Monza on April 22nd. The 155 laps on day 2 produced Hamilton's fastest lap of 1 minute 00.740 seconds. That improvement from 1 minute 01.031 on day 1 is not because the track dried out. The irrigation system kept it consistently wet. That improvement came from somewhere else. And Fred Vasseur being physically in the garage, not in the motorhome, not on the phone, in the garage, tells you exactly how important that somewhere else was. Team principals do not attend routine tyre tests. This was not a routine tyre test. The detail that most reports missed about the Fiorano test is not what Lewis Hamilton was doing, it is what Charles Leclerc was not doing. Ferrari's #1 driver, the man who qualified 3rd at Suzuka, who finished 3rd at Suzuka, who is currently 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, spent both days of the test in the simulator and in technical meetings, not in the car, in the simulator. That split reveals the structure of Ferrari's April preparation more clearly than any official statement. Hamilton's job was to generate real-world data. 884 kilometers of engine behavior, harvesting response, and energy deployment patterns under controlled wet conditions. Leclerc's job was to take that data and the outputs from Ferrari's ongoing aerodynamic simulation work and validate it against the simulator environment. The SF26's correlation between real-world behavior and simulator behavior is one of the critical unknowns Ferrari identified after the first 3 races. Vasseur confirmed after Bahrain testing that the correlation between wind tunnel, CFD, and track data was good, but 3 races of real-world energy management data have since arrived. That data needs to be fed into the simulator, compared against what the simulator predicted, and used to refine the models that will govern the new software arriving in Miami. Leclerc in technical meetings while Hamilton runs 3 race distances is not a coincidence. It is the two halves of a single preparation program divided between the driver who provides the data and the driver who validates the model. The 884 kilometers at Fiorano feed directly into what happens at Monza on April 22nd. Ferrari's filming day, officially 200 kilometers of promotional running, is where the Fiorano data gets its first validation under competitive representative conditions. Monza was chosen deliberately. It is one of the most demanding circuits on the 2026 calendar for energy management. Long, flat-out straights, minimal heavy braking zones, sustained high-speed sections that stress the harvesting and deployment system in the same way Miami's back straight and turn 1 approach will. If the new energy management software works at Monza, it works anywhere. If it does not work at Monza, Ferrari has less than 10 days to adjust before the cars roll out in Florida. Hamilton and Leclerc will share driving duties at Monza. Both drivers in the same car across the same circuit on the same day, with the new software loaded, generating comparative data on how each driver's style interacts with the revised algorithms. The Macarena rear wing, the rotating wing system that promises 5 to 10 km per hour of straight-line speed gain when operating cleanly, will also run at Monza. Its first version failed at Shanghai when the closure timing mismatch with the front wing caused Hamilton to spin at turn 6. The revised version, lighter and with the synchronization fix, needs to be validated under Monza's heavy braking conditions before Ferrari will commit to racing it at Miami. Monza on April 22nd is not a filming day. It is a final exam, and the Fiorano test was the study. Pirelli's decision to request Hamilton for both days was not purely about tyre consistency. It was also about what Hamilton brings to a sustained high-mileage data collection program that no other driver on the Ferrari roster currently provides. Hamilton has spent more time in more different power unit environments than any active driver in Formula 1. 12 years at Mercedes, 2 years at Ferrari. He knows what a well-optimized energy management system feels like from the inside of a cockpit in a way that no telemetry trace can fully capture. When he ran 142 laps on day 1 and the system was behaving in a certain way, he could tell the engineers not just what the data showed, but what it felt like, where the power curve dropped unexpectedly, where the harvesting intervention was intrusive, where the new algorithms were fighting rather than supporting his inputs. That qualitative feedback driver feel rather than pure data is what made 884 kilometers more valuable than 442 kilometers would have been. It is also why the lap time improvement from day 1 to day 2 matters more than the absolute numbers. Going from 1 minute 1.031 to 1 minute 0.740 on a consistently wet surface is not tyre improvement. It is system optimization in real time. The engineers were adjusting something between sessions. Hamilton was validating those adjustments with his times. And by the end of day 2, Ferrari had 297 laps of evidence about how the revised energy management approach behaves when a 7-time world champion is pushing it to its limits in controlled conditions. That evidence goes directly into the Monza preparation, and Monza goes directly to Miami. While Ferrari was completing 884 kilometers at Fiorano, Mercedes and McLaren were preparing for their own Pirelli test at the Nürburgring on April 14th and 15th. Dry tyre compounds. A different program. A different focus. Neither team was watching what Ferrari were doing at Fiorano on April 9th and 10th. And that is precisely the point. Formula One's April break has produced a window that teams are using in very different ways. Some are focused on hardware, building and testing upgrade components for Miami. Some are focused on simulator work, validating aerodynamic models against race data. Ferrari is doing all of those things simultaneously. The Mugello TPC test earlier in the break gave Ferrari's development drivers 2 days of chassis data on the SF25 under the relaxed 2026 TPC regulations. The Fiorano wet test gave Hamilton 2 days of real-world engine data under conditions that stress the energy management system differently from anything seen in Melbourne, Shanghai, or Suzuka. The Monza filming day on April 22nd will give both race drivers one final opportunity to validate the complete Miami package, new algorithms, revised wing, updated floor, before the championship resumes. 3 separate on-track programs across a single 5-week break. No other team on the grid has used the April window this comprehensively. The gap to Mercedes is 45 points in the Constructors' Championship. It is 25 horsepower in engine output. It is an unknown quantity in software efficiency. Ferrari cannot close the hardware gap in April, but they can close the software gap. And 884 kilometers of data from Fiorano is how that work begins. It was officially a tyre test. Pirelli got their data. Ferrari got something more. 297 laps of real-world evidence about how the SF26's energy management system behaves when pushed to its limits under controlled conditions. That evidence feeds into the Monza filming day on April 22nd. Monza feeds into Miami on May 1st. And Miami is where the championship answers the question that 884 kilometers of wet laps at Fiorano was designed to help solve. Not whether Ferrari can build a faster car, whether they can unlock the full potential of the one they already have. Subscribe to F1 Perspective, Monza filming day coverage, April 22nd.